Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Vitocrossal 300 CU3A product overview webinar. My name is Miranda Getling, and I'm the Academy Manager here at Viessmann. I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you for attending today. We appreciate you taking the time to attend this webinar despite what we are all going through. Today, your webinar instructor will be Jay Sheldon. Jay has been with Viessmann for the last 5 years. The first 3 years, he was a member of the Technical Service Department before moving into his current role as the Academy Training Instructor. Jay has a master license, has been in the heating and cooling industry for the past 30 years, including holding job titles as General Manager, Service Manager, and owning his own company for 14 years. Jay is a United States Army vet and loves to spend time with his wife, 2 children, and 2 grandsons. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. Everyone will stay muted throughout this webinar. However, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A button. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please pop them in there. Jay will be stopping about halfway through the presentation as well as the end of the presentation to answer any questions that may be submitted. On the left-hand side, you will see the desktop laptop version, and on the right side, you will see the mobile device version. If you have any IT technical issues, please let me know by either submitting what is happening through the Q&A button or the chat button at the bottom of your screens. We will be recording the webinars, and it will be posted on the Academy video library, available on the Academy website, which is the same one you went to register for this webinar. Once you are in the video library, you're going to select the Record Webinar section, and then you will have to hit Discover More in order for the videos to populate. This should be up within the next week or so, therefore you will have the opportunity to go back and rewatch this at any time. With that being said, let's begin. Here's Jay Sheldon.
All right, thanks a lot, Miranda, and thanks everybody once again for joining us. Again, my name is Jay, and we're going to be talking about the Vitocrossal 300 this morning. Before we get started, I just want to let everybody know I did sanitize my mic and my hands before we get started with this journey this morning. All joking aside, hopefully we can weather the storm, and within a few months we'll be past it. With that being said, we're going to put up a couple of questionnaires here, and we'll start with those couple of questionnaires. They should only take about 30 seconds each. And with that being said, we can start with the first. Have you worked on a high mass condensing boiler before? All right, that should have been a pretty easy one to answer. All right, so we have some yeses and we have a little more no's. So hopefully we can convince people on the difference. All right, we have one more questionnaire. Have you attended a Viessmann Academy webinar or in person before? Hopefully after all this is said and done, you can come into Viessmann's live fire training with all our live fire boilers, hands-on training. All right. This just gives me an idea who's in the class and what we need to talk about. Oh, great. So we've had some in person and some on none in person. So yeah, we got to get you people into Warwick, Rhode Island, and get into our hands-on training facility. It's really nice now. We have a lot of hands-on different things to do. We do troubleshooting, service and maintenance. So there's a bunch of different things that we can do in the live fire training. But with that being said, we can get started. So this morning, like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about the Viessmann's Vitocrossal 300 CU3A. And this is a product overview. So this is going to give you a bird's eye view of the boiler itself. It's great for if you never saw it before, and it's also good if you have seen it before as well, because we cover a bunch of different things throughout this process. And just remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Ask all your questions, please. With that being said, let's get started. All right, for our learning objectives today, we're going to be describing the difference between the CU3A boiler and compare it to a wall-hung boiler and the difference between those two. Different common applications for the Vitocrossal, and four different benefits and features of the CU3A. Then we're going to identify the most common method of piping for the CU3A, and you're going to find that this boiler is going to be piped just like a standard old drop-in cast iron boiler, basically. So let's get started here. So here's our residential boilers. We have some wall hungs, the 100 Vitodens, the 200 Vitodens, which the 100 comes in a few different styles, as well as the Vitodens. We have other webinars on these boilers as well right now, as well as all hands-on for all these boilers. The Vitodens 222 is the same as the 200. The only difference is it's going to have a 26-gallon storage tank below here. Nice little boiler there as well. Today's boiler that we're going to be talking about is the Vitocrossal. There's a difference between the Vitocrossal and the Vitodens with the heat exchangers as well. Today we'll be talking about the Inox Crossal heat exchanger. The Vitocrossal is ideal for small homes, large homes, small commercial projects. You can have multiples of these boilers. They've just been approved recently in Canada for common venting as well. So as well as multiple boilers, you can common vent. We're waiting to hear when they're going to do that here in the United States. Should be pretty soon. We can also do 3 different temperatures right out of the boiler, as well as going over, supplying hot water to an indirect storage tank. A lot of nice features with this boiler, as you'll see down the road here. They do come in 4 sizes right now. Just to show you on the left-hand side, for years, they always came through in kilowatts, and now they're all showing to be in BTUs. By the way, US is the only country that does BTUs. Every other country does kilowatts. So they come in the 4 sizes, the 94,000, 125,000, 160,000, and the 199, just shy of 200,000. They do have a 5-to-1 turn down ratio, and they do propane with just a switch of a dial, which we'll see that coming up shortly. Like I said, they could be a standalone boiler, cascade control up to 8. I like the floor standing high mass boilers. They can handle some of the micro loads easier than wall hungs just because of the high mass. Nice thing about any of our floor standing products, they all have adjustable feet, which I like. You know, small things amuse small minds. You don't have to sit there pounding down some piece of copper to get the boiler level. It is a fully modulating boiler. Like I said earlier, natural gas or propane, just a switch of a dial. And then the neat thing on this boiler here, it has the Lambda Pro combustion management technology. We'll get into that a little further down. It's sort of like having an analyzer in the box and auto adjust. Zone circuit control functionality with our electronic mixing valves as well. We can do dry contacts and do the domestic hot water production as well with the contact relays inside our boiler. Different multiple venting options. We can do BMS, and this does come with smartphone communication. Basically right now that is for the homeowner, and it's a Wi-Fi device that comes with the boiler. We'll be talking that more in depth at the end. So why is water volume mass important? Like I was talking about earlier, it can handle small micro loads. We'll have larger run cycles, fewer burner cycles, longer run times. Lower NOx, our boilers are pretty much meet all standards, including Southern California and the lower NOx area. Reducing short cycles, that's what I would mean with micro loads, like a small 3000 BTU towel warmer or something like this. This boiler might not even fire while it's drawing temperature off the boiler. This boiler can also run up to about 190 degrees. For a condensing boiler, that's pretty high. The nice thing is there's no primary, secondary needed on this boiler like you do with wall hung boilers. No flow requirements. It does come with a low water cutoff and no minimum flow rates. No flow switch to be activated. And the installations are quick and simple. That's what I like about them. I've installed quite a few of these already, and nice, easy boiler to install. Let's take a look inside the boiler itself. We have the Vitocrossal 200 control, which is pretty much the same exact control that's on the 200. So if you come to our control programming classes as well, you'll have handheld simulators as well as you can go do it on the actual boiler. The premix burner. We have a dome burner tube on this one here. The Inox Crossel stainless steel counterflow heat exchanger. So that means we're blowing flue gases down and the cooler return of waters are coming pushed and forced up to get the boiler to condense more. The flue collector is at the very bottom. And at the very bottom as that flue collector, there is a trap on our boiler. So you might hear me talk about traps a little bit today because I find that that was one of the #1 calls I seen in tech support, was double trapping or not doing your condensate correctly. The nice thing about this boiler as well, our flue comes off the bottom as well as our fresh air intake. So if you have short basements or anything to that nature, the venting does come off the bottom of this boiler to help venting issues getting this boiler in where maybe a wall hung might be too high. All your pipe accesses are in the back of the boiler, so just give yourself enough room to do the piping in the back of the boiler, and you can make a nice, neat looking job. So what you're seeing here is a cutaway of the boiler. The boiler is actually cut right in half. And here you have your heat exchanger where your burner is firing into with the matrix dome burner, and the heat is actually getting blown down through your passageways where it's going to collect all your flue condensate in the very bottom here. Just be aware that what we're trying to do with that condensate is collect about 8,000 BTUs per gallon before it leaves the boiler. So as they get blown down like this and our return water, cooler return waters are coming back, it will actually help condensing. In the return pipe here, there's actually holes inside the pipes that injects it into each heat exchanger. Here are different sizes. They are 95% AFU rated, so you can see our gallons of water content. Temperature range anywhere from 50 to 195 degrees Fahrenheit. At the very bottom there, you can see that they're not quite as heavy as a cast iron boiler, but they have some weight to them. Well-constructed boiler. This boiler actually came out in 1994 in Germany. And we got this boiler in, I believe it was 2013 or 15. It is a high grade of stainless steel, which has got the infused titanium stainless in it. But if you looked at each pocket here, it's a little more than 30,000 BTUs per heat exchanger. You can actually figure out the size of the boiler by counting those plates. And why we have that Crossal pattern is we want to get the flue gases to bounce off the sides to get the best heat transfer possible as it's getting blown down through that heat exchanger. So by the time it gets to the bottom, we have stripped most of the heat out of that boiler. The matrix dome burner, I started putting Viessmann's wall hung boilers in over about 20 years ago, and they're still out there with the same dome burner. So they've been tested, tried. With this boiler here, we have what they call the Lambda Pro control management on there. So as you can see here, we have igniter, which is actually igniter and flame sensor, as well as one more flame sensor here. Nice things I found about all Viessmann's product is everything is replaceable and everything can come apart fairly easy. That's the one nice thing about these boilers here. Very simple to service as well. Lambda Pro technology was designed in Germany because they do not produce their own natural products, natural gas, propane, any type of fuel. It's shipped in from different countries like Russia and China and different places. So the quality of the fuel is constantly changing on a regular basis. So instead of sending out one of their technicians out there constantly to make air adjustments on the gas valve or whatnot, they came up with Lambda Pro self-calibration. We'll get a little bit into that, how it works itself. So if you see right here in the center, this is what we call 1.3 of excess air, and Lambda is pretty much right here in the center. So it gives you a perfect combustion is what Lambda Pro is. So when we first start up, we're gonna check it in the very lean. So we're giving it way too much air right now. And then that sends a signal over to the control. If you follow these, going to the control and then telling the gas valve how slow and how fast to pick up the speed on the fan, as well as how much to open. We go over there and then we give the information to the 1.3. This happens a lot quicker than this, but in the meantime, this is why they tell you not to throw your analyzer in the boiler for about a minute and 88 seconds. or 88 seconds rather, I'm sorry. Then we go over to the really rich. So now we're starving it out for fuel here. So we're checking it with it really rich. So now we're sending that information back to the control. And then once we go back, we want 1.3 of excess air. Reason why we want that excess air is Lambda is perfect with no excess air. Oh, here's a little bit of a better chart here. So now you can see this is Lambda here at 1.0. So there's no excess air there. So if we follow up that chart one way or the other, we could have issues. So they always want to see this here at 1.3. So if you follow that up, that's where it's going to give it to the richer. It's going to give that reading. I'm sorry, to the leaner, and then over to the rich. So when we're in the, especially when we're in the rich combustion test, your analyzer would go off the charts. So the very first, the igniter electrodes will keep the gas valve in place as well. And then until that second flame sensor heats up, that's when it's Lambda Pro takes over. So this is showing you Lambda, and this is why we want to stay down the middle of the road here, right? This is just showing a live fire here of that burner firing. So if you watch it, the main one where it just ignited, it's going to hold your flame sensor in with that one there. Now you can see down at the bottom, the other one's starting to heat up. Just a neat little slide, and nobody's eyebrows got burnt on that one there. Go over a little bit of the venting of this boiler here. We can do multiple different types of venting out of the, pretty much the same as the wall hung boilers. Just the difference is you're going to come off the bottom of the boiler here. Coax concentric venting, just be aware, I believe it will come up in the slides up. You'll need an adapter if you're going to do coax, which is a pipe and a pipe. We actually sell a brand here at Viessmann called Cox-Gielan. Just be aware there is a difference between ours and Centrotherm and Duravent, and those that Duravent and Centrotherm, they when you're cutting theirs, they normally want like a 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch sticking out of the inner pipe. With Cox-Gielan, it's a flush cut, so they don't want anything. So make sure you be aware of whose venting you're using so you don't run into any cross-contamination issues. We can do a direct vent 2-pipe, direct vent single pipe room dependent. I always try to stay away from that room dependent air as much as possible. Unless you get air filtration coming into that house or bringing air a different way, recommended you be careful with that as well. Flexible vent up the chimney we can do as well. I've done it both ways, flexible up a chimney as well as used CP polypropylene up a chimney as well. A lot of times we're taking cast iron boilers out and we have a nice chimney right there. Other little options, considerations, you might take your fresh air, run your fresh air up if you're near the ocean up through the chimney and take it out through the top of the roof and then let it dilute into the basement. Just an idea of things that can cause issues with your boiler is salt air. Only on combustion air can it be PVC, so no PVC anywhere on this boiler except on the fresh air side. And please make sure you are going to clean out those shavings out of your PVC because your fresh air on this boiler goes directly to the burner itself. So it's like a gigantic vacuum. It's going to suck any shavings or dirt or anything like that up into that burner and most likely get into your burner tube. So be aware, make sure you clean out all your PVC shavings out of your fresh air. In the top right-hand corner, this is our coax piping, polypropylene, your rolled flexible liner. Just hopefully you do it on a warm day because that stuff can get pretty stiff. That's why I went to a hard straight pipe. Unless you got that offset in the chimney, that's when you would normally go to that flexible liner. So back view of the boiler here. Just be aware in Europe, they all their product normally in their living area, so they don't want you to see all this stuff. So it's usually sticking out the back. But starting at looking at the different views of the back of the boiler here. Our exhaust vent here, fresh air intake, which comes with a small piece of CPVC adapter that you can glue your fittings into, as well as our exhaust here, and that's our test port. Right here, you're looking at your where your boiler drain is. Normally, when I'm piping this boiler here, I put my feed valve and expansion tank off of here. This is going to be a return for the boiler. So there's that CPVC adapter. So looking off the back of the boiler, depending on how you're venting. These are cut right out of our venting manual. The nice thing with all our boilers is you don't even have to cut the box open to get the manual. So you can just pull a flap on the side of the boiler, cardboard, reach in and grab your manual. So that's what I normally do with our venting manual. And the homeowner really doesn't need a venting manual. So then you can highlight all your different measurements, including your elbows and your distances and all of that. I tend to use polypropylene because I can get farther distances with because they're only 1.5 feet on our 90s on polypropylene. The first two 90s off the bottom of the boiler or off the back, the first two 90s are not counted in any of our boiler calculations. Just be aware, the farther away your pot, the better off you're going to be with cross-contamination. We don't have to have a balanced flue, so we could have fresh air on one side of the building, 5 feet away, and go out with our exhaust out the other side of the building 65 feet away. So it doesn't have to be a balanced flue, so we can get them the farther apart away, less chance of cross-contamination. In Germany, they do nothing but coax up through the roof. Room dependent air, just be careful. I always use my house when I first built it as an example. When I first started the fire in my fireplace, I went into my basement. It was full of smoke. This was a basement that's got about 2,100 square feet of wide open basement. And what was happening was when my oil boiler come on, it was pulling the smoke from my fireplace down into the basement for my clean out. So houses could be extremely tight. And now that they have a lot of these air filtration devices, things can get adjusted. But make sure you're getting air brought into the building if you're going to do room dependent air. We sell both, so you will. This is our adapter that you're going to need to go to coax venting. We offer a sidewall venting kit as well as a roof termination kit. Just be aware of your max combined equivalent lengths. And if you need to go further, you can always increase your pipe size to get some extra distance as well. But when they say combined equivalent, that means you're combining your fresh air and your exhaust to get that one, for an example, 198 feet. That could be 100 feet of fresh air and 98 feet of exhaust, or whatever way you want to do it. But you're not going to exceed that 198 feet. So make sure you're counting your 90s, your 45s, things to that nature. If you're doing PVC fresh air intake, your 90s will now be 5 feet for a long sweep and 8 feet for a short sweep. So even if you're doing polypropylene, you can cut down your distances on your returns, fresh air returns, by using polypropylene. It's a little more expensive, but you're going to get more distance that way if you need to. Just showing you coax. Coax is nice if it's up and out, right out close to a wall and you're up and out. Because it can be a little more expensive, but if you compare your labor time and what it's worth to drill just one hole over 2 holes, and what are you drilling through? Are you drilling through cement, which then you might have to core a hole. So things just to consider. Looking at the very top of the boiler there, the nice thing about this boiler, it's designed with that safety header. And that safety header is all the air scoop you're going to need on this boiler. They give you a high vent, high rated flow, high vent with this boiler, so you don't need off your supply of another spiral vent or any of those types there, because the ones I put in, that was all the air extraction that I needed, was right off the safety header. Over here, you're looking at your gas supply coming into the boiler, and then it goes through this boiler out to the front with a stainless steel front connection to the burner itself. I like talking about it. All the boilers now are in NPT threads. We're the only country, again, that does NPT threads, but I started putting these boilers in over 30 years ago, and they came with adapters, with hemp rope. So it cut into a little more of your installation time by adding adapters onto the boiler to go from straight threads to NPT threads. Like I was talking about earlier, boiler drain here. And most of the ones I put in, I try to get my expansion tanks low as possible, because I'm not the kind of guy that likes to reach up in the ceiling and get your expansion tank out when it's full. So I like to have it down here low. And you'll find that it will last a lot longer there, because you're at the lower temperatures of the boiler. What normally kills an expansion tanks are those high temperatures hitting that bladder on the expansion tank. You do have to add a low water cutoff to this boiler, which if you come to our wiring class as well, we have a spot. I think we have a wiring spot in this as well. So we'll show you where that low water cutoff can go, where it was just going to kill the burner and not kill your pumps. This is one that we have in the lab. This is the way I like to install mine. I get that 4-way T so I can have my boiler gauge facing you. Low water cutoff in the back, the T at the here. Sorry about that. This T right here is going to go over to my relief valve, and then here's my high vent. Our high vents do come with check valves in them, so to replace them, you're just going to unscrew them. You don't have to take any water out of the system. Here's our fuel requirements on our boilers here. And if you learn these fuel requirements, they're the same for every single one of our boilers, right up to our 6 million BTU commercial boiler. I like to talk about this right here, because a lot of times what we're doing is normally there's an atmospheric gas burner here, and now we're bringing in anybody's power burner on a lot of cases now. So make sure you size your gas piping correctly, because with an atmospheric boiler, a lot of times what can happen is if your gas piping is too small, your ribbons flames are just going to get reduced. A lot of times you're not going to know. It's going to heat. It's going to work. It might take a little more longer to heat the house, but now we add in our power burner in there, and now we're sucking the gas into this boiler. You might not have the right amount of volume, so that's gas piping sizes. There's a difference between volume and pressure. There is a quick little easy change to set up natural gas to propane. All our boilers are defaulted to natural gas. So if you see here, that's either a torque wrench or an Allen wrench will go right into the slot right on the top of the gas valve here. You turn that a quarter turn from 1 to 2. You now switched it from natural gas to propane. On this one here, there is a coating change that you have to do. If you ever forget how to do this, it's on the side of the inside of the jacket on this boiler here, which gives you step-by-step procedure how to turn the dial and how to go into coating and change that as well. Or come to our coating class and you can learn how to do that as well. So at this point, remember,
Looks like we have one question, Jay. Are there any vent adapters needed to use poly or CPVC?
they do give you the just the one adapter for the fresh air intake. The Poly Pro adapter will take any type of that size fitting to go into the Poly Pro, CPVC or Poly Pro, or even stainless if you wanted to use stainless steel.
Great. The other question is, will we be emailing attendees a copy of this presentation to review? If you would like a copy, you can email me afterwards, and I will send you a PDF version of the presentation. One more question, Jay. Let's see. 98 is the equivalent max length for total, is the total for coaxial?
Let me go back to that slide. It could be, but you can always increase your size to the next size up. So up to 110 feet with increasers. That's quite a far distance if you're doing coax. Unless you're doing an apartment complex or something to that nature.
All right, that looks like all of the questions for now, Jay, if you want to continue on.
Okay. So getting into the programming change, it's pretty quick and simple once you learn how to get into coding and doing coding addresses, which we also offer training on all our controls as well, residential and commercial. So to access coding level 2, and we want to go into coding level 2 and then pick general. To access that, we're going to press OK in the menu button for about 5 seconds. So over here, these 2 buttons for about 5 seconds. That's going to put you into the service menu. Once you do that, you'll look up here on top of your screen. It will say service, and then give you a bunch of different submenus. But once we do that to get into coding level 2, then we're going to press and hold OK and the return arrow for about another 5 seconds. Once we do that, then we're going to click OK on general. Once we get to general, we're going to hit our up arrow here and scroll up to address 11. Once we get to that address 11, when we hit OK, this 0 is now going to become highlighted. We're going to put the password of 9 in there. 9 is kind of keeping the homeowner honest. This is so you can go to this address 82 and make the change so nobody if you didn't put that 9 in there, you could not see anything in 82. It won't allow you to make any changes. Once you put that 9 in there at address 11, now you're going to scroll up to address 82. That's where you're going to go from a 0 as our default for natural gas, and then you're going to hit OK and change that to a 1. Make sure that you do, once you make that change, you hit OK once again. That's OK over here to make sure that it accepts it. Once you make that change, they say in the manual to go back to that address 11 and put any other number but a 9 in there, so 1 through 8. That locks the door. So when you make this change over here at this address 11, it's going to revert back to a 0 once you put this 9 in there. But take a look up here, you're going to see a key. That's going to, code 2 is going to change to a key, like a house key. Once you see that house key, you know you can go to 82 and make that change. Once you go back here and put that 11 in, you're going to see that key disappear. I'm sorry, put any number but a 9 in there. You'll see that key disappear and code 2 will come back up there. Again, our gas requirements for minimum. We're looking at 4 inches for natural gas, minimum. For LPG or propane is 10 inches. I found with propane on the installations I did with propane, 12 and a half always worked great for me. As we've seen a lot of issues with propane over the last couple of years because a lot of new companies are getting into propane. So we did a lot of research on propane as well. And a lot of times propane issues come down to the wrong regulators, which will freeze up. And then guys think it's freezing up because there's moisture in there. There is moisture, but caused by a different reason. So we add some more methanol, as they've already added the methanol that it needs at the shop. And each time this happens, methanol keeps getting added to the fuel. And then next thing you know, we're burning a lot of methanol, which burns hotter than propane, which propane is a hot fuel as it is. So just be aware of what's going on. A lot of those issues I addressed with a low gas pressure switch. Because what I was finding is a lot of the guys with these new companies were not breaking them down into full vacuums. When they come from the factory, they're in a vacuum. So just like with your air conditioning, you pull it down in a vacuum and then allows you to add that Freon, or the same thing with propane. It allows you to add that propane with not a lot of air pockets. And that's what I was finding is a lot of air pockets within. So you bleed the air out completely, and then 2 days later you got another air pocket. So I put or recommend putting a low gas pressure switch in the dirt leg. And if you have to go down there and hit that reset button to get that boiler to fire, then you know it's a propane issue or a gas issue. With this boiler here, the only thing that you're going to do is check your inlet gas pressure and your running gas pressure to make sure that you're not dropping more than 1 inch. That's your inlet test port. This is a negative gas valve, so there is no test ports on the outlet of this gas valve. Remember, Lambda Pro is pretty much setting up this boiler complete to perfect combustion. So we just want to make sure that we're hitting CO2 marks on low fire as well as high fire with this boiler here. So on this control on the top here, we have what they call an actuator test in programming that you can put it at low fire to test as well as high fire to test. And hopefully everybody has a manometer nowadays, because if you do call tech support, they're going to want the readings that we require to make sure that we're getting the proper readings and that you're not dropping below our 14 or 10. This is looking at the face of the boiler once you take the cover off the boiler. So as you can see, here's where all your wiring is going to be done at the very bottom. All your knockouts come. So if you want to bring your wires through the channels in the back and they come up through the bottom, up through there, you tie all your wires in through the front right here. And then just run your wires through the back slots that they give you. On the right-hand side, you'll see our power pump module. Our incoming power goes there, as well as our EA1 extension module on the other side. Excuse me. The nice thing about Viessmann is all our plugs are numbered, as well as they can only go into the same spot that you took them out. There's a couple of pump outputs that you can mess up, but the rest can only go into one spot. The blue is all our low voltage, which is all auto recognized. So all our sensors are domestic sensor, our outdoor temperature sensor, low loss header sensor, if you wanted to use that on the spoiler, are all auto recognized. So as soon as you plug them in, it now knows it has that device connected, as well as our mixing valves, by the way. You can have two of our mixing valves right out of onto this boiler here, and have two different temperatures going that right out of our control. All of red are our line voltage. So on all our boilers, all our incoming power is always going to be your 40. 41 plug on most burners. If you do our oil or our commercial boilers, is always going to be our power to our burners. So going back even 30 years ago, the number system's always been the same. So it helped me over the years learn their product and knowing all their different numbers. Sorry about that. So as you can see here, our incoming power is an on of 40. And what I always tell people with our boilers as well is our incoming power does not get shut off by our switch on our control. So you must be putting some type of serviceman switch on our boilers. As you can see, as we go through our plug system here, our 40 is our incoming power. 21 was always designated for our domestic, but you can change that from a domestic pump to a heating circuit pump to a recirculation pump if needed. Our 20 pump has always been our boiler pump. That can be a system pump if needed. Our 2820 is going to be a system pump as well. Our multi-plug, that's where you're going to tie in your low water cutoff here. As you can see, we have jumpers in place, so you're going to remove that jumper here, and you're going to go up with your line and come back with your one to your low water cutoff. On the other side here, if you do use our startup wizard, so it'll come familiar with you as we get that further down the road here. One of the options it's going to have you pick a pump option is a 157 pump output. That's going to be one of them, but you have to power it through your 48 plug here. So you're going to bring one side of your power over to this relay over here to power one side of that relay. So when it closes, it's going to send power over to your pump output. On this control, we can also take a 0 to 10 input. So if you are doing Tecma or solar or anything like that, that take a 0 to 10 or send out a 0 to 10 voltage, we can do that as well. DE1, DE2, or DE3 contacts can be either end switches off of controls or thermostats direct, but they all have to be a dry contact. Lastly, our 145 communication plug. If you tie in any of our mixing valves, it's just going to be a thermostat wire from that mixing valve control box that you would get with us. Your pump goes into that control box as well. It also has a pipe sensor that checks your constant temperature off your mixing valve. And then you're going to send that 145 communication over to this 145. Once you do that, the spoiler will now know it has a mixing valve tied to it. That's if you're using non-mixing valves. On the top of the boiler here, our outdoor sensor will go here. If you're doing your domestic sensor, which we give to you, by the way, right there, these two little red plugs, you don't have to take the cover off. You're going to plug in number 5 white plug that we give you that says number 5 on it to these two red spade connectors here. Once you tie that in, it will now know it has domestic. Your outdoor temperature sensor is going to come over here to this orange plug. And if you do happen to let the smoke out of the box either way, right here is your fuse on this control. And right, if you pull that straight up in the middle, there's going to be a spare fuse there. So there it is here. So as you can see, there's your spare fuse here. We can also do a 0 to 10 output as well. Coding card, that's telling you what size the boiler is, its firing rate, and it holds some of your information as well. Just to go over a few of your electrical connections, once again on this boiler here, are your 2820 pump output off our boiler could be a system pump. So if you're doing mixing valves or zone valves rather, you can use our pump to control the system as well. The 21 output, like I was talking about earlier, you're just going to wire your pump to that output there. As well as you can use that 2820 output as a recirculation pump as well, or the 20 output to use as a circulation, recirculation pump output. Outdoor sensor, we want to make sure that that goes in the right location. In the manual, it does state that we want it on the northwest side of the building, coldest spot of the building. It doesn't mean come out with your venting, and now that you drilled the hole, you can run your wire and hang it right above your venting, which I've seen that happen quite a bit. Farther away from the venting with our sensors as well. Number 5 sensor that we plug into the boiler is going to come over into the well, into the top of the boiler. If you're using the larger tanks, it gets bolted to the side of the heat exchanger itself of the tank. The new control features with this control is called the Startup Wizard. It's not real new. It's been out for the last couple of years, actually. The neat thing with this control, it's like a laptop computer. So this area actually will fold up, and then you can fold it down so you don't even see the screen. So you can do either 3 zone circuits out of this boiler or 3 heating circuits. 3 heating circuits with Viessmann's prior way to zone circuits would be more like constant circulation type of deal, using our boilers and our mixing valves off the 3 different heating circuits. 1 high temperature and 2 mix. Zone circuits, you can have a fixed set point and 2 mix, or 3 set points. So when you first initially start up the boiler, this is what you're going to see when you first initially start up. So the very first slide on the left-hand side there, this one here, when it first initially starts, this bar will come across, and what that's doing is just checking all its safeties when it first starts up. Next thing it's going to ask you is, do you want to keep it in American English? So you're just going to hit OK on that and accept it. Next thing you're going to do is set your time and date. To me, it's very important to select your time and date on this boiler, because we can actually do our time and date. We get our fault codes with the time and date it happens. So that can help you troubleshooting. I see a lot of problems with generators getting added in and gas piping not getting updated. And every Wednesday, for some reason, the boiler is locking out. Then we can check to see what's happening every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And that could be sometimes a cycle of generators once a week to make sure everything's operational. Time of date, as well as we can do time programs on our heating time programs, as well as domestic time programs, recirculation time programs as well. So we can do domestic recirculation with the control itself. So that kind of means that you don't have to go out there and buy those pumps with all the push pins on it. You can use our control to do your recirculation of your domestic hot water as well. So if you set up with no zone circuits, that's the prior way of heating circuits. So if you see up here, you now have heating circuit number 1. That would be your high temperature system. If you're doing it, it's always with the HCs, it's always going to go to the high temperature first and then modulate down to your mixed temperatures. If you're doing zone circuits, it's going to look more like this. So this is representing instead of a house now, it's representing a round thermostat. And now you can see we're in zone circuit 2. So with this boiler here, you can either send your thermostats directly over to the boiler to correct, to operate 3 circulators. You can add more circulators if you buy our AM1 module, which will then in turn allow you to add 2 more pumps. But the nice thing with that is now you still will have now more control over here. Once you plug that into the boiler with the 145, it auto recognizes that, and then it allows you to make temperature changes for each zone, each circuit. If you're using somebody else's, you're going to control it the other typical way with a zone control and switch. Your thermostat's going to that zone controller, and your pumps that go to that zone controller, and then you'll just send your end switch over to the boiler. Weather compensated, when you go to weather compensated, you'll be setting up your heating curves as well for each zone circuit that you pick. Your room temperature set point will go according to what heating curves you pick. So now you can see we can have 3 different temperatures right out of the boiler. Fixed set points. All weather compensated. So you can do it either way. I rather see everything weather compensated. The nice thing with this control here is with our outdoor reset curves, you can actually put a minimum and a maximum. So I do not want to drop below this temperature. I don't want to exceed. You can do a lot of really neat things with our outdoor reset as well. How fast it communicates from outside to the indoors. Warm weather shutdowns, frost protections as well. So if you put your outdoor sensor, if it fails, or as soon as it hits 32 degrees outside, it will maintain 68 degrees on the boiler at all times. So you could do it this way as well. Or weather compensated this way as well. You can do it this way, so you're running all your pumps and then just sending your end switch over to the boiler. We're here, we were just running 1 pump. So this would be zone valves. You can see down here, these are all zone valves. We're just operating the pump with the end switch. And on this one here, we're operating all the pumps and then just sending the end switch over. But you can do this with multiple temperatures too. So you could have this one here doing 1 fixed set point, and then you could have another set of them over here doing mixed temperatures, and then sending that end switch over to DE2, DE1, DE2, or DE3. This is showing our modulating mixing valve. So you do get this box here, plugs into the wall. So your pump here would get tied into here. You then in turn have a temperature sensor that gets strapped onto the outlet of that pump. So it's constantly checking your temperatures coming back and forth and modulating pretty accurate temperatures as well. I've had them in my house now for about 22 years. They're still working strong, knock on wood. And they put it right where I want it. I do more of constant circulation in my house, so I have no thermostats. So I use my outdoor temperatures for each one to modulate to what room temperature set points I want for those mixing valves. Looking at the packaging of this boiler here. So as I was saying earlier, there's little flaps on our boilers, including the CU3A, that you would just open up the flaps. You can reach inside and get your box of fittings as well as the manuals. So that means you can read on the boiler a little bit and before you go to install it. And then all your fittings will change as you get different size boilers. As we go larger, the fittings are going to get larger. So now you can see larger fittings. So you can see that it does come with that Poly Pro adapter for your fresh air intake, or CPVC or PVC. Outdoor temperature sensor. The only thing that wasn't shown here was your number 5 domestic sensor, which does come with this boiler, as well as your low loss header sensor. We do offer a variety of indirect tanks. I like to throw that out because we do sell a very high quality stainless steel indirect tank. If you haven't put them in, I've been putting them in for years. They last a long time, and they just came out with a newer 444 stainless steel shell, still staying with the titanium infused coils. The neat thing about our coils is they go all the way to the bottom, and they have like a flat top and bottom to give you a better heat transfer instead of having a round pipe and having that inner hot water just get a free ride through the pipe. They flatten it out so it creates turbulence. So you can get a nice, really good heat transfer from them. That's the 300 stainless steel series. We also offer a 100 series, which is the Cerafelt Protect, which is a little better quality than what we call the glass line tank. Lifetime warranty on the stainless steel. I think there's a 6-year warranty on the Cerafelt indirect tanks, as well as we have horizontals that you can stack at the 120 gallon marks there. The nice thing, they're all still the same stainless steel. If you do steam, I did a lot of steam in my life. These can also have steam go through them as well, so they're rated to handle steam on the horizontals. We have horizontals that you can put our oil-fired boilers on as well. They go down to, I believe, the 41 gallon mark on the smaller ones, and you can put our Vitocrossal boiler on top. So if you're limited for space, I've done that quite often. We didn't talk about our oil boiler. I like to talk about it a little bit because oil is still predominant in the New England area. The nice thing with our oil is if you have a lot of customers that have power venters, if you put our boiler in, you can get rid of those power venters, and because we can direct vent, we sell a direct vent kit. Once you do that, the customers like not hearing that noisy power venter, and it makes them pretty quiet for operations. They come in 3 different burners, Riello, Carlin, and Beckett, which we give classes on that as well. So with a single coil on our indirect tanks, we give 4 different sizes: the 42 gallon, the 53 gallon, 79, and the 120. We also offer dual coils because we do sell solar as well. So you can use that as well, solar, as well as some guys in this area here tie the 2 coils together and make one large indirect super type of heat tank. The nice thing with this boiler, it does come with this Wi-Fi VitoConnect device, which is good for the homeowner, really. All they can do with that is make their time programming changes, things to that nature, domestic water changes, no programming changes on coding or anything like that. Your faults will come up on here, so they will know that they have faults. So at this point here, I'd like to talk about the company a little more. If you haven't been to Viessmann, Viessmann recently switched hands. Maximilian took over from his father, Martin, last year. And Martin talked his father in from cast iron floor-mounted boilers to putting making wall-hung gas-fired boilers. And look where we've gone with that. To where Maximilian now has got a different vision. He's more into the technology. He's 31 years old, who took over a company that is a family-owned company that has 12,500 employees. Hefty task. But he's more into the digitalization, so they've already started this in Germany. They have a new Vito Connect type of deal that is going to be more for the contractors. And the Wi-Fi device is going to be built right into the boiler, and they're actually already using these. So what that's going to do for you is for your contractors and your business owners, you're going to have a map of your customers with a little push pin of the location of their boilers. And then it's going to be green, yellow, or red. Green means your operation is all good. Yellow means you're gonna call your customer and say, okay, Mrs. Jones, 5 hours of operation is or 2,000 hours of operation has just gone by, time to do your annual maintenance. Red is going to send you out a warning on your phone or on your computer to let you know that there is a fault on there. They then in turn going to tell you what the fault is, how to fix the problem, and what part to bring with you. That's really cool in this day and age where we're getting less and less people coming in the industry. So to me, that would be a nice, helpful tool to help with guys if they could know what the problem is before they even go out there and what pot to bring out with them. It might help us train some of the newer people coming in as well a little easier as well. So I find that to be a really neat feature, and we should see that within the next year or two. Hopefully they get all the bugs out now, and they've been using it now for about a year and a half in Germany. So with that being said, here's a nice little installation here. So you can see it does take up a little room, but it does make for a nice, neat looking job when you're completed. I know in my states here now we have to add these flue gas stickers for our intake as well as our exhaust. Have to go outside and put a little tag above the exhaust, letting the homeowner know where the exhaust is coming out as well. Nice thing is they put all the manuals here, so they'll be there. A lot of times what I would do is I would give the homeowner or the person just the operating instructions and tell them just to read a little bit about what their boiler can and cannot do, so they can become a little more familiar with it. And then the rest of the manuals, please leave down in the basement. With that being said, here's another nice little installation here. So you can see one of our indirect tanks. Cool thing with our indirect tank, you take the cover off, there's actually a screw-on 3-inch manhole cover there that you can unscrew and look directly right through the water all the way down to the bottom of the tank. The cool thing is I've been doing this for a long time, and my son's been doing it as well, and I never took mine apart. It's 22 years old. He took it apart this past summer. And I was pretty impressed what was inside that tank. Very small amount of residue on the bottom of the tank, but the coils were spotless. So I found that to be pretty interesting as well. On this installation is pretty neat too as well. So we got radiant here going up to our mixing valve here. We have different temperatures as well. We got a couple of different relays to control different heating temperatures. I thought this was pretty neat. They got these new pancake expansion tanks where you can screw right to the wall and you don't have to hang them off a pipe anymore. Another neat little installation here as well. This is more like the nice tight rooms that we're used to, right? Small little rooms that we get to put boilers in. As well as multiple boilers. Hopefully within this year that we'll see these boilers. You can do common venting. Well, like I was saying earlier, they were approved in Canada this year to do common venting. That means you should be able to have 4 of these boilers on one common vent with one common fresh air. So that's pretty neat, and they'll modulate to each, like roughly around to 40%. And then the next boiler will come on to about 40% until it catches up or it's up to the temperatures as needed. Over here, here's our cascade control. We also give classes on the cascading of boilers, which this is pretty similar to our commercial, what they call the GW6B. This one here happens to be the MW2C cascade control. So just to give you an idea there, that we do offer all different types of classes as well. So let's go over a little of our learning objectives today and what we did cover in this class today. I did go over the difference between a wall hung and a CU3A boiler. Just consider the high mass water content. There's about 13 to 15 gallons of water in here, to where most wall hungs are anywhere from 1 gallon to 5 gallons on our largest. So there's more burner cycles, more run cycles. Less run cycles last, the burner lasts longer, things of that nature. Common applications, remember small houses, hotels. So you can do multiples of these boilers, so they can go in small condos, pretty good size houses as well. The benefits, that Lambda Pro that I talked about, self-adjustment. One thing I didn't mention about Lambda Pro is that as soon as you hit the on and off button, it goes into calibration. So if you shut that off while you're there and put it back on, it will restart the process. But seeing that gas doesn't get changed on a regular basis, Lambda Pro will do every 4 starts, then every 8 starts, and so forth, until it hits about 250 starts roughly. Then it will restart calibration over again. And remember not to throw your analyzer in there for the first 88 seconds. The other nice thing about this boiler, there's no primary, secondary needed. They did do a cost analysis between the 300 and the 200, and it's almost a wash when you figure out your primary and secondary you need, your boiler pump that you need, and your labor to put that stuff underneath those boilers. So it's pretty much a wash. Where this one here, you're going to tie in inches like you've been doing for a long time. Anyways. Hopefully I'm keeping everybody awake, and we're still awake here. And the common piping venting, they can do it several different ways. We could do zone valves, we can do arm mixing valves, we can do all pumps. So there's all different ways you can pipe this boiler, primary and secondary if you wanted to. If you want to do system separation, you can still do it with this boiler, because you can add a low loss header sensor to this boiler. So at this point, please by all means come to our other classes, and hopefully this we stay home long enough, we can get this to stop and slow down, and we all can get back to a normal situation.
All right, Jay, looks like we have a few questions. First one I believe you did answer already, but I'm just going to mention it again. Can these be common vented?
At this point, I can say no, because they haven't approved it for the United States, which I believe that should be coming within the next month or so, or if not, it's already been approved.
You mentioned that the Vitocrossal 300 CU3A can be used in commercial applications. Can I specify it to be connected to a BAS using BACnet or Modbus?
Yes, that's the nice thing with this boiler as well, is we can put our communication device for your BMS into our cascade control, the MW2C, which in the class, I actually have one set up so you can see how that hooks up, and then you'd send your lawn to your communication. And yeah, you can do building management with this as well.
A pump on a hydro air handler should be wired to the 120-volt number 20 on the CU3A or powered from the AH control board.
Well, you could do it to the 2820. You can do it to the 156. That's why, yeah, come to the installation class and you can learn all that as well. But once you do that, it'll when you go through that automatic setup, you'll pick the pump.
On the CU3A 199, it does not come with the flue gas adapter. Will this be coming with the adapters in the future or on other do other models do?
The flue gas adapter, is that for your fresh air? I would think all of them do come with the adapters. If you're not getting it, make sure that you're asking your supply house for it. They should come with it.
All right, that looks like all the questions, Jay, if you want to close it out.
All right, great. Once again, thanks everybody for spending your day here with me to excite my day a little bit from this boring life that we've been leading lately. And you laugh because people are still calling me because they have no heat, and you feel bad that you have to say no. But at this point in our lives, we have to kind of do that. If not, you got to make sure they're very sterilized. Wash them down with bleach before you walk in the house. I don't know what to say there, but God bless everybody and stay safe. I'll hand you back over to Miranda now.
Thanks, Jay. Just to give you a few reminders from the beginning, it will be posted in the video library within the next week or so you will be able to rewatch this webinar. If you find yourself thinking of any additional questions after this webinar, feel free to email me. Jay and I will be putting together a document of the questions and the associated answers that we will send out to all of the attendees. Lastly, you will receive a follow-up email. We ask that you please take the time to fill out the quick survey to help us further improve our webinars, including what other topics we should look into offering, especially for the rest of April. With that being said, that does conclude today's webinar. Thank you for attending and have a wonderful day.